Web3 is responding to the failure states that could not have been imagined at the beginning of Web2. The surveillance state that exists now was not conceivable to anyone at the beginning of the era of Web2. The ways that Web2 have strip mined the creator economy and also sort of news organizations and really all types of content could not have been foreseen at the beginning of the Web2 era. And so a lot of the use cases we're seeing for Web3 are sort of these corrections for those problems that we now understand. And this is very funny. You can reread the sort of early utopian internet texts and then see the ways that they are both right and wrong, what they didn't foresee in this innocence of the time. So I guess when we're talking about the future of the internet, the thing to really think about is what are the problems that will be created by Web3 technology that are not visible to the creators. And so, yeah, this is an ask to use history as a cautionary example whenever possible.
The internet is, trying its best to be a universal substrate. In the Web 2.0, that's become less and less true over time because of centralization, because of state powers, because of a lot of different things. I think Web 3 has a really good opportunity to be that universal substrate because of its permissionless, because of its decentralization, because of the inability for it to be taken down by a single actor, because of its inability for people to censor other people. Like, it has the technical underpinnings of a really level, open playing field. One can't really build a decentralized system within a centralized one. And so the solution, of course, is to operate independently, as we're seeing with Web 3.0. And there are, of course, bridges, but at the end of the day, there's a starting from the ground up, a rebuilding of the base protocols of how people interact. And I think if we get that right, there's a chance that we get the true vision, the original vision of the web back.
The decentralized web, if we get it right, is going to offer an alternative version of the internet that isn't driven by advertising and isn't driven by surveillance. And for me, that really comes down to improving people's access to information that isn't geared towards getting them to do a particular thing that will drive them towards buying something. And especially when we look at the millions of people who are just coming online now or who do not have deep technical skills, we can improve the glide path for them getting access to good, accurate, reliable information and having it more easily accessible. And that for me is incredibly exciting. And I think it's also a human rights issue, right? If we look at freedom to express oneself and access to information, these are driven by core human rights concerns, right? And those are a lot of what we're trying to uphold in the future of the decentralized web. So many of the people building the D-Web are driven by values, are driven by a commitment to human rights, and that really sets it apart from much of what's driving innovation in the internet that we have today.
In the present, it's really hard to recognize that everything is changing and innovation is an ongoing process, and what you see today is hardly the final state. There is no final state. Things are constantly changing, and there's all sorts of opportunity, and amazing things are happening. And we're in this moment right now. There are different points where there are just these inflection points where incredibly powerful things can happen, and we're in one of those right now. And you just need to look around and figure out what is interesting about these different projects, what is interesting about these worlds. If you could build a more distributed world, what would that enable? And try and get beyond the paradigm of the world that we live in today, get beyond the world in which you just have 2 or 3 companies that control most of what you do online, and start to think about how could that world look different And then what can I do to help get us there? And, what that is might be very different for very different people, but, there are lots of opportunities right now if you just look around and figure out who else is working on these things and just figure out how to engage.
We're at a time where so many different parts of the computing stack are accessible and are ready to be utilized to create a whole new paradigm. And if ever you have felt like things just aren't working for you, for your community, I think this is the prime time to tap into this technology, see what it is about, see what it could enable.
I think developers are now going to be empowered to think differently and to think about how to create products and services that have a much better economic relationships between, the providers of content on the service, the consumers of that content, and the service themselves. And it's really this alignment between these three parties that creates a healthy, growing ecosystem, which is a win-win-win for everybody. And I think that's what Web3 is really about and what it's really going to enable. And that's what the next wave of great internet applications is going to look like. So that's what I'm trying to build. That's what I'm excited to be a part of. I hope others pick up the torch and carry it forward as well.
Let's not forget Bitcoin is 12, 13 years old at most. Ethereum is 5 or 6. We are in the early stages of building the new world economy. And being a part of that, it's incredibly powerful and fulfilling too. So, and what we need is more people. We need everything. We need tons of engineers, developers, we need auditors, we need project managers and designers and community managers. So I always tell everybody, it's like, if you're serious about this, then jump right in. The timing has never been better.
I truly think that today we are living in a more connected global economy than ever before in time. And I think that's why a lot of countries are closing off or scared of the promise of the internet and the promise of access to information. When we think about where power is still centralized, unfortunately, it's in a handful of companies that I can list on one hand, right? And so I think it's so important that users are able to have alternatives. People are able to know that their information isn't ultimately still under the hands of monopolies, and that there are a community of users that are supporting each other's services. So I think it definitely allows for better decision making, more expression of self, and more ability for anyone to be able to have their voices heard, no matter where they are in the world.
The goal of all of this is like a cooperative global world where, there's world peace and children everywhere can participate in a network that, is fair and open, and we can all learn and focus on progress. There are, if you go to our world in data, there are a ton of problems in the world when it comes to biology and literacy. And so when we have a united world focused on the world's toughest problems, we can actually make humanity better across the board.
We're trying to build a web, the web that we want, the web that we deserve, the web that is both a marketplace and a public square, a place where you can own your own identity, where you can share without worry, where you can have privacy, and you can still have fun. And if we're successful, I think we'll create new technologies where there's a lot of distributed benefit, that not just a few stakeholders, a few early investors get the benefits, but the masses get the benefits. Can we make it so that there are fewer gatekeepers, so that the benefits, the rights, the values are distributed across the whole web, not just in the hands of a few. That's the great promise of what we're working on today.